What up, geniuses? E here. So today was day 2 of the Gwent Open, the first Open of the year. Congratulations to those players who made it. If you haven't watched any of the Open, you really should give it a go. It's the absolute best players in the game, competing at the highest level on the biggest stages for real money. There was over 20 grand in the Gwent Open prize pool. There was no entry fee to get in. All you had to do was do well enough in Pro Ladder, and you're there, you know? So, well, for the Open specifically, you have to qualify, but you have to do well enough in Pro Ladder to get to go to the qualifying tournaments and get yourself into the Open and make some of that money. So, really cool to watch. But anyways, while the Open was going on, or slightly before, I suppose, we had a bunch of reveals from the next coming balance patch. They revealed some changes that's going to be making. It sounds like this next patch is going to be huge. They said they didn't even reveal everything. There's going to be more in the patch notes. And we got a lot of stuff to look through, so let's get to it. Okay, first off, we have Armory. So they're doing some things where they're taking some old special cards or some old artifacts and they're changing them into locations. I don't know if they're maybe going to give us something that searches locations specifically in the future or anything like that, but they're giving them the idea that locations are going for an artifact with resilience, that it's good for some sort of carryover idea in a future round. And so that's what they're doing with Armory. So Armory used to just be a special card, six provisions that said boost an allied unit by 6 and give it 3 armor. Now it is a location that on deploy will boost an allied unit by 6, and then its order will give it 3 armor later on. So I like the change. I don't know if it's going to make it great. It is still a 6 for 6. But with decks that can take advantage of that armor later on, maybe something playing Living Armor, for example, or something that can take advantage of armor, like, and turn it into points, you know, like a Dwarf Berserker. There's quite a few cards that can do it. Then it's going to be playing as a 9 for 6. So I think this card will see some play in those sorts of decks that can abuse that armor. But it's certainly not going to be like a mainstream card or anything like that. But overall, a welcome change. We'll take more locations. Next change is also a location, and a really interesting change in my opinion. So, Land of a Thousand Fables, it used to just be a special card that said an artifact that said play a special card from your deck. Now it is a location, and they've added the order ability, transform a special card in your hand into a random unit of the same provision cost from the same faction. So, interesting to see what people are going to be able to come up with there. Couple things you can do. You can change an AA into a Drog. Drog is the only card in NR that is the same provisions as AA. Only unit, that is. Maybe only card at all, but definitely only unit. And that would perhaps be useful. Again, that would be for something like Blue Scouts. So Blue Scouts did get some support in their leader ability buff, so who knows, maybe it's used for that. I'm sure there's a lot of other goofy combos people will come up with for it, so we'll have to see. Okay, so next we're going to go into the monsters. So that was all the neutral changes that got revealed, but next we're going to look at the Foglet. So the Foglet is going to change to Deathwish, spawn Fog on the opposite row for 3 turns. So if you don't know, Fog is it's a weather effect, and it's sort of like Frost, except it affects the lowest unit. So yeah, it'll damage the lowest unit on the row that's affected by Frost by 2 at the start of the owner's turn. So they didn't actually make a slide for it, but Foglet's old ability is going to be put on Archspore. So Archspore, the card, I don't really know how to say it, Archspore, something like that. But it currently says it's 2 power, 4 provision monster card. It says deploy, damage a random enemy unit by 2, Deathwish, damage a random enemy unit by 2. That is going away. It's going to say Deathwish, summon a copy of itself from the deck. So Foglet, though, is going to be a bit more lore friendly and is going to be spawning fog. So weather effects going on. Maybe we can really have weather effect monsters. I'm a huge fan of the Wild Hunt stuff, and it's just not that playable at the moment. So maybe this makes Wild Hunt a playable deck. We shall see. Next change is to Ancient Foglet. So this card used to be 1 power, and it said Death Wish, boost self by 4 and summon it from the graveyard. Never really saw any play. Now it says Veil, deploy, boost self by the total duration of row effects on the opposite side. Whenever you apply a row effect, boost self by its duration. So this is just going to be an engine. It comes out at 4 and, well, sorry, it starts at 4. It could come out quite a bit bigger than that, and it has the potential to play for quite a lot in a long round. So current Wild Hunt can already put Frost on the board for a really long time. We're going to have Fog coming from the Foglets. Perhaps there's going to be more support coming for this that we don't know about. But I think weather effect monsters might be a real thing. More support for the weather effect monsters, Eredin. So Eredin's going to stay the same. He's going to deploy and spawn Frost on an enemy row for 2 turns. And Dominance increase the damage dealt by Frost by 1. So it'll damage the highest unit on the row by 3 rather than 2. So he used to be 5 power, and he is changing to 6 power. That's a big deal. I think the change from 5 to 6 power is probably the biggest change, biggest power change in Gwent. 4 to 5 is also pretty big, but there's just so much 5 power removal, and there's not a lot of 6 power removal. You gotta have gold removal to remove a 6. So Eredin's gonna end up getting heat waved and stuff a lot now, which we much prefer to trade our Eredin for a heat wave than to trade it for like a Nature's Rebuke or an Alzur's Thunder or something like that. So big buff to Eredin, really, really better than a 1-point buff, I would say. Unseen Elder. So Unseen Elder is receiving the same buff as Eredin. It's just a card that gets removed way too easily. It's really important to the vampire strategy. It's super strong, but it would just get taken off the board all the time. So now it's a 6. They're going to need some gold removal to get rid of it. I think it's a good buff. It doesn't really solve the problems that vamps have, which is that they just have no removal, you know? So maybe we see something like that next expansion. Give it some devotion removal, because this really needs devotion in order to get maximum value. Yeah. I don't know. Doesn't solve Vamp's problems, but hey, it's helpful. We'll take it. So next we're getting into SK, and this might be my my most welcome buff of the whole patch. Armor Up is getting it's staying completely the same card, but it's changing from 5 provisions to 4 provisions. So I really like this card. I play it in my Heyme Flaminica deck, and it's great, you know. It works really well with Arnagot. It works really well with the Bear Witcher Mentors. It works well with the Heyme Flaminica, like I was saying. It's just always been a little bit overcosted. It's been a 5 for 5, and then with some additional synergies. But 5 for 4 with some additional synergies is well worth it, in my opinion. I think this card's going to see a lot of play. I really think it's going to make like a self Bloodthirst archetype with the Bear Witcher Mentors. I think it's going to be a really real deck. So we'll see. I'm definitely going to be experimenting with this card, giving it some play. I was already experimenting with this card at 5 provisions, so very excited for Armor Up. Next we got Coral. It seems like they change Coral every patch. Even the developers were joking about it when they were talking about this change. It's like the new Imlerith. It's just going to change all the time. But anyways, Coral's effect has stayed the same. Zeal order, draw a card, then discard a card. Whenever you discard a card, damage a random enemy unit by 2. But it has gotten the power change from 5 to 6 as well. So I'm wondering, with all these power changes from 5 to 6, are we going to start to see more 6 provision damage being played. Something like Parasite. Parasite's already being played, but something like Gigascorpion Decoction, stuff like that. Maybe it's going to be more popular now that there's so many powerful 6 provision engines. We'll see. They trade up really nicely with these engines. Next, we have the Dire Bear. This is really lackluster in my opinion. So Dire Bear used to say units in this row and the opposite row cannot be boosted. And then with this patch, they're going to be adding Berserk 7 affects only the opposite row. The thing is, like, if you're going to be trying to play Dire Bear, you ain't really boosting stuff. And Skellige doesn't boost a lot of stuff anyway. So the idea that they gave on stream is you could play this with something like Druids. You could damage it with a Priest and then let your Priest start growing. But I don't know. I just think there's better cards to use than Dire Bear in the Gedineth, the Druid deck, you know. Yeah, this just really doesn't fix Dire Bear's problems. Now, I actually think Dire Bear is a pretty good card. Against a lot of decks, it really demands to be removed. But yeah, this Berserk 7 effect, I don't think it's going to have any impact on this card's playability. Next change is another location change. We got Svalbard Totem turning into a location, so it's going to have resilience, of course. Other than that, it's the same thing. You deploy it, you spawn Svalbard Fanatics on both sides of this card, and then you damage adjacent units by 2. So the thing is, you can save the damage adjacent units and use it in a later round. So you're sort of saving a -4 points in there. But if you're playing some sort of self-damage deck, it might be worth it. I think the idea with this, so it seems pretty dumb with the way that Svalbard Totem is currently played, where you slam it down in your Warriors deck or your fill-in-the-blank Skellige deck, and then you use the order ability on the Fanatics themselves. But if you're playing some sort of self-damage deck, you might be able to just do the two damage to your Svalbard Fanatics that are spawned by these yourself in the rest of your cards in your deck, and then it perhaps would be useful for you to save the 4 damage for the next round. So I don't know how much application that's going to have. I think the card honestly is just gonna be played the same as it is now, but we shall see. Croc on Crate. Deploy. Give 2 armor to 3 pirates or ships in your hand. Whenever you play a pirate or ship next to Croc, damage it and the lowest power enemy unit by 1. Croc and Crate. So it used to be deploy, give 2 armor to 3 pirates or ships in your hand. Whenever you play a pirate or ship next to Croc, damage it and the lowest power enemy unit by each other's power. It is still this. However, it's got a little bit of an engine thing going with it. So it just says order, damage a unit by 1, cooldown 2. So helps a little bit. Maybe you can help to decide what your opponent's lowest enemy unit is going to be by damaging it down and removing things with Croc's own damaging effect. So basically, they're just adding a Brockvar Hunter into Croc. So, hey, Croc's not seeing any play. Pirates are pretty weak. Give him a little Brockvar Hunter effect. That's what I say. The developers in the stream seem to be pretty sure that Croc is close to playable. I don't know that he's close to playable. With all this armor stuff though, like the armory and like the stratagem change, perhaps this will be better, you know? This is definitely one of the decks that would be able to use enchanted armor, the stratagem change. So be sure to check my other video for that. Next, we're going to look at Iced. So everybody's been screaming for this. A nerf to Iced, a nerf to Iced. This isn't, I don't think, really what everybody was looking for, but I think it's good, you know? They changed all they did is they changed Bloodthirst from 2 to 3. So it's harder to meet the condition for Ice now, particularly in a short round, which is where Iced is the most deadly. It's first of all, your opponent has to have 3 things on the field to give Bloodthirst in the first place, and then you got to actually put the damage on those units. So I support cards that get a big payoff for a little bit of setup, you know? And as long as Iced is requiring more setup now, I think it's fair, you know? I really don't think Iced was that unfair in the first place. You could usually play around Bloodthirst pretty well with a lot of decks. But now I don't know. Now it just seems like a pretty fair card. It's still going to see play. It's still really good, but I don't think it's broken or anything. Next, we're going to be looking at Scoia'tael. Not a lot of Scoia'tael changes, but one is to the Neophyte. So it used to just say deploy, spawn a copy of self in the other row. Now it has the order ability, transform an allied elf into Elven Deadeye. So of course, both copies, the one that you play and the one that you spawn, will have this order ability. If you have a situation where you have like 1-point elves or something, this order ability will play for 2 additional points. So it can play for up to an 8 for 4. Also, it has some synergy with things like Vernociel, creating Elven Deadeyes. Definitely a needed change. This card was really, really bad. It was a 4 for 4. It was 2 bodies, but big whoop. They're not even on the same row, which is really what Scoia'tael cares about. So, yeah, I think it's a good change for sure. Next, and the last change, actually, that they revealed for Scoia'tael is Monroe. So Monroe now says Zeal, order, transform an allied rowdy dwarf into a dwarf berserker, charge 2. So this used to just say deploy, transform 2 allied rowdy dwarfs into dwarf berserker. Now the problem with that is if you had some sort of boosted rowdy dwarf or something like that, or if you didn't have any rowdy dwarfs on the field at all yet, you couldn't play this because you would really risk losing a lot of value. If you transformed a 9 strength rowdy dwarf or something into a dwarf berserker, that would be a pretty big disaster. So the big deal about this card is partially that you can put it down before you have rowdy dwarves, but more so that you get to choose which rowdy dwarves you're going to transform. Yeah, it just makes the card much more consistent. It's nice. Next, we're going to be looking at Northern Realms. The first buff is to Poor Fucking Infantry. So this card used to say, deploy, boost self by 4. So it would just be a 5 for 4, 4 of those points being boosty points. Pretty bad. Pretty bad all the way around. I didn't see anybody ever playing this card. Yeah, all the way awful. Anyways, they changed it to make it not awful, and now it says deploy, spawn left flanking infantry and right flanking infantry on both sides of this unit, bonded, boost self by 3. So they didn't actually say what left flanking infantry and right flanking infantry are, but I'm going to imagine that they're tokens, probably 1 strength tokens. I can't imagine that they would be 2 strength tokens. This card would be way too busted. Just playing for 7 off the bat with a bonded tag. But I imagine they're 1 strength tokens, and hey, this is big, I think. For decks like NR Swarm, for example, which they're definitely pushing, you'll see in the next few card changes. This is really helpful, you know. There wasn't a lot of ways for NR to put a bunch of bodies on the board cheaply, you know. There's cards like Adalia, there's your boats, of course, but your boats take some time. This card just slams down, and it's 3 bodies and pretty good point evaluation. I like the bonded tag. They're gonna all be soldiers. I dig it. I'm looking forward to playing this card in some Swarm. Next change is Fultist. So Fultist says, the first time a bronze unit on your side of the battlefield is boosted each turn, spawn a base copy of it at the bottom of your deck. Devotion also boosts the spawned copy by 1. It has always said that, but now it additionally says, at the end of your turn, boost a unit to the right by 1. So it's kind of got like a Temerian drummer effect built right into it. And so what this does is it makes it so he triggers his own first effect. So at the end of your turn, he can boost something by 1, and then Foltest will spawn a copy of it at the bottom of your deck. So you have like the Dunbanner deck that could potentially benefit from this. You got quite a bit of stuff. They changed the provisions from a 12 to an 11 and power from 7 to 6. So just I don't really know why they do that, to be honest with you. It's easier to fit in a deck now, I guess. The difference between 7 and 6 provisions is not that huge as far as getting removed is concerned. So overall, I would say that's probably just a buff for this card. And then, of course, the built-in Temerian Drummer is a pretty big buff. Maybe this card will see some play now. We'll see. I still don't think it's worth it in Commandos, but maybe the Dunbanner deck has a chance. You know, I haven't played around with that too much, so perhaps I'll give it a go. Meave says, inspired, at the end of your turn, lower the counter by 1. Counter 3. When the counter reaches 0, boost all allied units by 1. And now, reset the counter. Whenever this unit receives a boost, gain 1 armor. So, the big problem with Meave was, first of all, she's kind of just a bone talisman with a body that costs 3 more provisions, and is slow, and is not guaranteed by any stretch. So the issue was you would have her armor knocked off, and she would just get damaged down. You could never keep her inspired. She was just a bummer. But now every time that you boost her, she gains an armor. So potentially, especially if you're boosting her 1 boost at a time, it's going to take twice as much damage to take her inspired off, and it's going to make the counter a lot easier to wind all the way down and get the payoff. But the reset the counter is pretty interesting. So that means Meave could go off a potential of 3 times per round in a long round. I don't know how good it is, to be honest, because the first couple times that she goes off, you're just not going to have that much swarm yet. But, I mean, even if she only plays for like 4 points the first time, and then you're also able to get her off again, seems pretty good. Of course, it makes it so you have to commit her earlier. Your opponent's got a longer time to be able to chip away at her. But I don't know. Anything we can get for old Meave. Meave was really bad. I think Meave was the worst card from the mini expansion, and this maybe will make her better. To be honest, I don't think so. But if there's a good way to keep her alive and get the payoff off 2, maybe even 3 times per round, maybe Meave will start seeing some play. We'll see. Next, we're looking at Nilfgaard, and the first change, ooh, it's a big one. Oh man, it's really big. So they are nerfing Masquerade Ball. Oh, I tell you what, we needed that. So it now says, progress whenever you play an aristocrat on your side of the battlefield. So this means when you play a Roderick, when you play a Joachim, any aristocrat like that, when you coup de grace your Roderick or your Joachim, that's not going to trigger your Masquerade Ball. So now you're forced to play some aristocrats, and it's not so good. It's not so good to have to play aristocrats. Honestly, the aristocrat deck with like seditious aristocrats and things might end up being one of the stronger ball decks because they already play bronze aristocrats. But the only like actually played bronze aristocrats were Van Morleham Hunter, and that card is questionable. So huge nerf to Masquerade Ball. Huge nerf to NG in general. And Nilfgaard's really been dependent on Masquerade Ball for a while now. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Nilfgaard's gonna have anything. The aristocrat deck really is not that strong, but the next card is a little bit of a buff to the aristocrat deck. So it is a mirror. A mirror does trigger your ball still. He is an aristocrat that you play on your own side. So basically the only change to this card is you can seize a 1 power enemy unit with spying. So it used to do that, right? But it would auto seize it, which means you didn't get to choose. So now you can choose which 1 power enemy unit with spying you're going to take. That can be really useful, especially like if you're damaging down your opponent's engine or something. You've already given it spying and you want to take that. It makes it so you're not like accidentally taking your informants and things like that. So also, if you're non-devotion, you're still going to get the order to seize a 1 power enemy unit with spying 1 time. It is Zeal, so you're going to be able to use it the first turn, just like how it used to be when it worked at the end of your turn. So now Devotion is just going to make it so that you can refresh the order and do it every turn like you did last time. So really the only change to this is that you get to pick which 1 power spying enemy unit you will take. I don't think it's enough. I think Amir is really bad as well. Not as bad as Meave, but bad. And I don't think this change is going to do it, but we'll see. Next we have Damien. So Damien got the same treatment as a lot of other cards on our list, getting changed from 5 to 6. So a lot of other cards this update, I should say. 5 to 6 power. So Damien's not going to be so easy to remove now. Obviously the problem with Damien before, you slap her down on your melee row. If you don't have your defender, it's just guaranteed to get removed. And if you're playing against a deck like Enslave, people are saving those 5-point removals for your Damien. So getting away from Ball, they're trying to give us more options. Maybe something like Enslave with Damien is going to be a bit more consistent to get off now. So Stefan is another one they did. Another kind of a buff to Enslave. Stefan has been changed from 10 provisions to 9. So now you can renew him. I don't know how good that's going to be, but maybe someone's going to be able to find some crazy combo where you can just get a ton of value out of Stefan by renewing him. Obviously, there's the combo right now with Cadaverin, where you end up poisoning your opponent's best thing and spawning 2 copies of it. That's pretty good. But he did not get the power boost from 5 to 6. I think he'd have been much better off staying at 10 provisions and getting the 5 to 6 change. But he's still going to be at 5, still easy to remove. We'll see, a 1-point boost is good. People are going to be experimenting with these cards more now that Ball is a lot less playable. So maybe Stefan gets some serious play. We'll find out. Next, we have Vreemd. I'm a big fan of Vreemd. As you know, this is a huge card in the Slave Infantry deck that I like to play. It can just play for massive points. It's not actually changing, except that the provisions are going from 7 to 6. So Slave Infantry just getting a 1-point buff, 1 provision buff, I should say. We'll take it, and this helps all of the soldier archetypes. It helps Soldier Swarm. Yeah, Vreem's just a really solid card. For 6 provisions, I mean, you only have to have 2 of something on the field for this to play to be worth it, basically. An 8 for 6 is fine. It's not great, but it's fine. And you can oftentimes, I know with the Slave Infantry deck, you can get up to like 20 points with this card. So 20 for 6 is pretty bonkers. So excited to play this card. And I'm excited to play it in conjunction with the next card, the Vrygif. So Vrygif also is staying the same as far as his effect. You just triggered the deploy abilities of adjacent bronze soldiers, something you're going to use in Soldier Swarm, something I use in my Slave Infantry control deck. And he is just getting a power boost from 3 to 4. So just a 1-point boost. So the Slave Infantry deck getting a 1 provision, 1 power boost. I like it. Come on. Next, We're going to SY, Syndicate. Ooh, the nerf we've all been waiting for. Halfling Safecracker loses its Intimidate. So Safecracker is just a Venendal elite now, pretty much. So this card was really, really responsible for a lot of the trouble with the Crown Splitters deck, we'll call it. The deck with Cleaver, the deck with Drill, you know the deck, the Line Pockets deck. This card allowed the deck to have such a strong round one. You could just slam this down, play your Justice, slam the other one down, then just play a bunch of 4 and 5p crimes. These would play for 2 points for each crime, because they would play for the one that you played, for the ones in your hand when you played them originally, and then the Intimidate they would just keep growing, and it allowed them to beat a lot of decks on even. It allowed them to just gain so much tempo. It was really, really difficult to tempo pass them or anything like that, and it really had to do with this card. I've always thought that Halfling Safecracker is the real problem with that Syndicate deck. Without Halfling Safecracker, I think they would be a fraction of the deck they are now, and now they really don't have them. I mean, this card's still going to see play, but ooh man, it's a serious nerf. So they did increase its base power from 3 to 4. Gonna make up for it a little bit, but I mean, a lot of the times they would just play their 3 power Halfling Safecracker. It boosts by 5 up to 8, and then they play 5 crimes that round, and all of a sudden they have a 13 for 5. That doesn't seem very fair to me. No other factions get to have just like 13 for 5s. All you got to do is have crimes in your hand, which the deck already needs to play anyways. You know, it's not like you got to make a big sacrifice to play your Safecrackers. So, yeah, very welcome nerf. Next nerf, Cleaver. Cleaver is losing its armor. This is another big one. I mean, Cleaver used to come out as a 7, like you'd need 7 points of damage to remove it, even if you just slapped it down right in the open field. Now it's going to come as a 5, because of course you deploy it. Shakedown will come out and boost it by 3, and then his Intimidate will boost him by 1. So this is just going to make it where if you want your Cleaver to live, you're going to have to set up some Crown Splitters first, which I think is great. You don't have the opportunity to just slam it down and shit out a bunch of Cleaver's muscles, a bunch of points, and really push your opponent with no setup required, you know. If you do that now, this is going to come down as a 5 power. You're going to be able to rebuke it. You're going to be able to Alzur's Thunder it. You're going to be able to Stunning Blow it. You're going to be able to kill it in all kinds of ways. I think it's a good change. I'm glad they didn't really change the feel of the card, you know. I think this was the perfect change, to be honest. It just makes it so it's not really any weaker. The card hasn't lost any points, you know. It's lost some damage points, I guess. But yeah, you're just going to have to set it up now. You're going to have to play Crown Splitters. Maybe this deck will consider playing things like Coerced Blacksmith for a couple more Crown Splitters in the deck. We'll see. I don't know. It definitely got hurt a lot. This change plus the Safecrackers change is, I mean, it's brutal. It is going to lose its worst matchup, though, which is the Chinese Metabreaker Ball deck with the double Joachim. That's not going to be around anymore, I don't imagine. So, yeah, still going to be a real deck, but some real nerfs, some good nerfs, in my opinion. So onto the buffs, we got Keeper of the Flame. So Keeper of the Flame says deploy, boost all adjacent units by 1. Tribute 4, boost all units on this row by 1 instead. So that's what it said before. Now it says decrease this card's tribute cost by 1 for every allied cleric. So real quick, let's see what clerics... Oops. Let's see what clerics we have in SY. Get out of here. Cleric. Alright, so we have the Grand Inquisitor Half-Eed, Bodia. Alright, what sees play here? This sees a little bit of play. Firesworn Scribe. Okay, so just a boost to Firesworn, I suppose. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. I mean, Fireswarm is the swarm option for Syndicate, and this is a swarm payoff card, and they're just going to make it a little bit cheaper. So I like it. I think this card could maybe see some play. Firesworn does congregate specifically, really does need some boosts, and who knows? Maybe this is enough. Maybe it is. It's going to be really good point evaluation. If you have a few clerics on the field, you're able to boost a full row, 8 points, and it's only going to cost you. I mean, say it costs you 2, right? You got 2 clerics on the field. That's not that hard to do. Pay 2 for 8 boost, and then it's a 4 for 5. So what's a 5 usually playing for, right? A real good 5's playing for like 8, right? So 4 of those points are here, and then you're paying 2 for 8, so you're getting 6 here. So this is really like a 10 for 5. So if you can have the two clerics, so pretty much it's going to be playing if you can get a full row. Of course, it creates a lot of setup, but potentially this card, if you have 4 clerics on the field and a full row, is going to be playing as a 12 for 5. Very strong. We'll see if it's enough. We'll see if it's enough for old Firesworn. They've been struggling for a little while lately. Personally, I think the deck's a little bit underrated, a little bit slept on. Maybe this will bring them back into the spotlight. We'll see. Next, we have Horst Borsodi. Deploy, gain 3 coins. If Edwald Borsodi is in your graveyard, gain 6 coins instead. Now he is going to have fee 1, give an allied unit vitality 1. So he's just a spender. Syndicate needs spenders. I don't think this is going to do it, to be honest with you. It gives it a little bit more flexibility, but it's only playing as a 7 for 7, potentially a 10 for 7 if Ewald Borsodi is already in your grave. And so this is Ewald Borsodi here. This is the next one that received a boost. This got kind of the same thing. Fee 1, give an enemy unit bleeding 1. You got to play both of these cards, and one of them is going to play as a 7 for 7, and the other one is going to play, I mean, let's see. This one can play as a 10 for 7, and this one can play as a 9 for 7. So best case scenario for 14 provisions, you're getting 17 points. I don't know. I don't think that's very good. Even with the spenders. I don't know. Yeah, and it's such a bad spender too. It's a slow spender. Give an enemy unit bleeding 1. Vitality 1. I don't think these are going to do it. It's a good idea. Nobody plays these cards, so why not give them a little bit of boost? But I don't think this is going to be enough boost. Next, we have Horson Jr. Horson Jr. has gained Insanity. He used to, you'd have to be Devotion to get Insanity. Deploy, damage a boosted enemy unit by 6, gain a coin for every point of excess damage dealt. Now he says Devotion, damage an enemy unit instead, so he can damage any enemy unit. He isn't going to have to be boosted. This is big. I mean, this card wasn't that bad before. It wasn't really played. But, I mean, Speci played it. Specimen took this card to his qualifier, actually, the Open qualifier. So, and he did pretty well with it, to be honest. And now that you can just damage anything by 6, also fee 3, destroy an enemy unit with 3 power or less. It's got Insanity, so in theory, this can be used to remove a 9, even if you have no coins. I think it might be worth it, you know, playing as an 11 for 10 right off the bat with a pretty good spend. I like it. I like it. I think Horson Jr. is going to see some play. So, finally, my number one favorite buff of the patch. We needed this. We've been begging for it. Reddit, you've been begging for it. Salamander Mage. Finally a mage. Finally. Ooh, baby, do we need this mage tag. It was unplayable. Card's finally playable. Thank you, CDPR. You've heard our cries. You knew what we needed, and you delivered. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and leave me a like down below and perhaps subscribe. I would love that. I would love that very much. I have a lot of fun making these videos. Let me know down in the comments below what card you think is going to be the strongest after the buff, what decks you think are going to be the strongest. It's going to shake things up a lot. There's a lot more patch notes coming out that we do not have access to yet. This is just the stuff that was revealed today. Really exciting stuff. Stay tuned. I'll be keeping you updated.